Prunty. One of Dayton's favorite sons, next to the Wright brothers and the guy who invented the stepladder.
You came from here?
Alright, I've been told to stall by my wife because she's running out of the car really fast. So you can just stare at me for a while. You can just stare at me for a while. I don't mind. It's cool. You're not the first. Alright. I'm going to be reading a story first here called Chicken Soup for the Kidnapper's Soul. And this is an introduction to the book, Chicken Soup for the Kidnapper's Soul. Anyone who says kidnapping is easy doesn't know the first thing about strapping duct tape to an angry set of lips. Fact is, kidnapping is exhausting. Whether your motives are political, financial, or other, it feels impossible to maintain that first kidnapping buzz throughout your career. Remember when you originally slipped a cloth sack over your congressman's head? Remember that unforgettable swarm of butterflies in your stomach after you threw them in the back of your windowless van? I bet that feels like a fuzzy dream nowadays. It's common to lurk through the peaks and valleys while holding a victim, or victims if you're ambitious, against their will. We've all experienced the days when it seems like the muffled screaming and the basement door scratching will never stop. We've all been so stressed that every pothole our van runs over brings us to tears. We've all wanted to pull our hair out, or worse, return our little house guests to the playground where we found them. But hang in there, we're kidnappers, darn it, and we're in this together. Chicken Soup for the Kidnapper's Soul is the only book dedicated to guiding you through this adventure we call life. In the following chapters, we'll cover useful coping techniques for experienced serial nappers and the weekend stalker alike. The important thing to remember is you're not alone. Come on, did you really imagine you're the first person to think of this? I suppose the Lindbergh baby just wandered out of its crib. And I bet the Symbionese Liberation Army didn't need a little me time after brainwashing Patty Hearst. I didn't think so. No two human thefts are the same, and nobody understands that better than Chicken Soup. You may be surprised, but there are some common troubles and hurdles that all nappers face. Sure, your ex-girlfriend won't marry you after she's been in the trunk for 5 hours, but that doesn't mean you can't achieve some spiritual growth in the process. Chicken Soup's here to show you how. Chapter 1 stalks the most basic human function, one we all forget in the heat of the nap: breathing. Studies show proper respiratory techniques help relieve stress and clarify focus, not to mention tying a sheep shank from bungee cords a heck of a lot easier. Chicken Soup's proven five-step cool-down process will have you out of the basement and lurking in the shadows in no time. Chapter 2 prowls a step further. Now that your head is clear from breathing, it's time to stop dragging your tail end and plan for the future. We'll discuss several methods for effective confinement calendaring using Microsoft Outlook and Excel spreadsheets. Additionally, we'll help you spot possible snags in this plan before they become nightly news material. Here at Chicken Soup for the Kidnapper's Soul, we say an organized kidnapper is a happy kidnapper. At this point, you can hold your ski-masked head high. You're a calm kidnapper with a well-planned detainment. Way to go, slugger! Now is the perfect opportunity for a little bit of reflection. Chapter 3 spreads open the drapes and peeps into the burning question: what kind of kidnapper am I? It's common, even while keeping your congressman captive in a U-Haul truck until he fixes those enormous potholes by your house, to question our motives. With a short personality test, you'll learn where this burning urge to hold people against their will comes from, what kidnapping style fits you best as an individual, and what it says about you personally. Hint, it has nothing to do with your astrological sign. One of the most popular questions Chicken Soup receives is, hey, I'm comfortable with who I am as a kidnapper, but my prisoner is a real drag. What gives? The answer is, they always are. But seriously, folks, Chapter 4 is here to save the day by dissecting that question at length, making this an enjoyable imprisonment for everyone. Topics include, have your kidnappers work for you? Kidnappees, that didn't go out right. If you're like us, you'd love to hire a maid to stop by and tidy up the compound once in a while, but they're expensive. Meanwhile, you've got a herd of preschoolers in your attic just itching to vacuum or wash the dishes and maybe even clean out the slop buckets. Well, the answer practically writes itself. Other topics include, cheer up, Congressman, I just changed your water dish. And, look, if I didn't drug you at that sorority party and take you back to my cabin in the woods, someone else would have. And they wouldn't have made shortbread cookies, now would they? Whew! What a whirlwind. Talk about anxiety. Inevitably, doubt calls you in the middle of the night and breathes heavy into your ear. Chapter 5 binds and gags the whole, maybe this wasn't such a good idea stage every kidnapper goes through. Let us take a guess. Your shoulders feel like sacks of cement. You haven't slept in days, and some new wrinkles were recently spotted below your eyes. Am I right? Well, tough luck! Kidnapping is a full-time job, Buster. But don't panic. This happens to the best of us. Did you forget your breathing? Frayed nerves are part of this business, and Chapter 5 will clear your mind and maybe your conscience. Learn to deal with fear of life imprisonment and fend off negative publicity from your teeny tiny congressman napping with spirituality, lots of laughter, and old-fashioned calisthenics. Chicken Soup's final chapter, Chapter 6, helps you focus on the inevitable goodbye. Throughout history, it's been next to impossible to kidnap someone forever. Just ask that guy who kidnapped Frank Sinatra's son. And with today's technology, Amber Alerts, and excellent milk carton photography, the kidnap train has to pull into the station sooner or later. Whether you choose to discreetly return your house guest to the steps of Congress, duct tape inside a sleeping bag, or dream of being taken forcibly by ATF agents in a hail of gunfire, it's hard to fill that gap kidnapped victims leave in their wake. It's not unlike the sadness of an empty home when your youngest child is shipped off to college. We call this empty basement syndrome. If you think you're too tough for empty basement syndrome, maybe you're not a real kidnapper. I bet you'd make a terrific prison guard. Holding people against their will and not making an emotional connection sounds like your cup of tea. Well, Chapter 6 is for the rest of us kidnappers. Those are the pit in our stomach around the time we used to empty out the feces bucket. It's for those with migraine headaches after reciting our pothole manifesto, only to realize that nobody with a congressional vote is tied up in the corner to listen anymore. This chapter is for anybody with that confusing burning in their hearts while wondering what to do with all these empty shackles and unused basement space. These are our people, Chicken Soup people, and we will cruise the road of recovery together. It's a harsh, empty world out there, and nobody knows that like a lonely kidnapper. Chapter 6 discusses your options at length. Recovery is a dark journey, so think of Chicken Soup as your flashlight. The obvious solution is to immediately plan your next caper. But when that special kidnappee leaves your life, it takes more than the satisfaction of lurking around bread lines, stalking out the halls of Congress, and crawling under gymnasium bleachers to fill that void. Fortunately, there are several kidnapper-friendly online chat rooms and prayer groups. This chapter discusses all the groups for your special needs. And finally, don't forget your one last chore, a trip to the mechanic. Undoubtedly, Congressman What's-His-Name didn't have the political pull you hoped. Needless to say, it's time to get new shocks and struts in your windowless van. Those potholes aren't going anywhere.